You said it twice. So everybody, welcome. Good morning and welcome to the roundtable discussion. This conversation is all focused around how we build Rockstar teams. I'm Harry Gooding. I'm part of Hayes Technology and we're a partner of Impact Ventures. We work together on some really cool stuff, but probably the most interesting, for me at least, is the Tech for Good competition and report that we produced together. We have an amazing panel in front of us, as you can see. So in advance, thank you to Nick, Sari, Susan, Michael and David for joining us. We've got 45 minutes together and we really want to make sure we cover as much as possible and encourage the panel to share as many useful stories, information, tips, tricks, all in the name of building Rockstar teams. Very small amount of housekeeping, given we're all online and there's no fire alarms and things like that to worry about. The key thing really is we really do want as much engagement from the audience as possible. So on the right-hand side, you will see a Q&A section where you can post a question. Don't wait till the end. Post as you go. Post as you think of them. And we will try to cover as many of those as possible during the conversation. But even though the early birds of us may have seen a little preview on who we all are and what we all do, let's just quickly run through the panel and get some introductions. And I'm going to try not to be too demanding or strict with any of our panel. However, I will be if required. So you've all been warned. I would like very much, if okay, to do who you are, what you do for a living, and simply, do you have or are you part of a Rockstar team today? And let's start with Sari. Sari.
Ladies first. So I'm a CEO and founder for a Finnish company, a tech company called Kide Science, and we have amazing content platform for early childhood educators around the world, paying customers from 30 countries at the moment. And still, we have a Rockstar team, but it's actually quite small. It's still 13, three people in our team. And of course, then we have teachers around the world, but the core team is only 13.
And is it a Rockstar team?
It is. I said that already.
Good, brilliant. We will be making sure to ask you why. Let's mix it up. Michael next.
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Michael Boham, and I'm a product lead at a scale-up tech company called DataIQ, AI platform that enhances collaboration on AI projects and the deployment of the outputs to everyday use as part of productivity. I'm also the founder of another platform, an AI platform called SkillSize. It's a startup that aims to remove any kind of bias in the assessment selection process by highlighting and focusing on skills, analysis, and merit extraction as part of the recruitment process. Are we a Rockstar team? Without a doubt, assuming none of my colleagues are part of this call at all. Yes, we are. On both accounts, I definitely say we are Rockstar teams. I'm fortunate enough to work with some amazing people, and I guess throughout the course of this conversation, I'll be able to highlight why that is the case.
Fantastic. And I think really if there was one goal for all of us, it is exactly that. It's this kind of slightly subjective concept of Rockstar teams that you do know when you've got one, you do know when you've worked in one, but it is a little bit difficult to put your finger on what makes it so. So that's what we're going to cover. Susan, your intro, please.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Susan Kimani. I'm the founder and CEO of a growing startup here in the UK called Eugenie. We do online communities and memberships. We spent the pandemic actually doubling our team. We're still very small actually, so we're only 8 at the moment, but looking to double that again in the next 12 months. And I think, when you're a startup and you have a small team, everyone has to be a rock star or else we're not going to get to that next stage. So been really fortunate. I think something my CTO said to me recently, he's like, Susan, we're competing with American companies who are raising like 50 million rounds. Our team is performing miracles for you. So yeah, I think that was just the best way to say, if we're competing with the big fish with 8 people, every single person's a rock star.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Nick?
Hello everyone. I'm Nick Gupta. I'm the CTO of the e-commerce platform at the Hut Group. Without a shadow of a doubt, yes, very blessed to be with the superstar Rockstar team. and looking forward to continuing to grow that team this year.
Fantastic. And last but not least, David.
Yeah, so I head up the talent acquisition and employer brand functions for a business called WorkHuman. So we're a social reward and recognition program. So essentially what we're doing is solving, what's the biggest challenge for HR leaders and business leaders today? It's how do we connect people in a disconnected world? How do we foster, cultures of recognition and gratitude, and, as a consequence, like really proactively boost retention, engagement, and happiness. So I'm in the happiness world, which is a good place to be.
Fantastic. Well, look, great introductions, and thank you all for taking the time to share a little insights on your Rockstar team. Certainly sounds like we're all pretty confident that we are working with some rock stars. Let's start, if we can, at a slightly more challenging end of this story. So before the team's your team, and before they're singing and dancing and flying and being brilliant, you have to find them and hire them first, right? Which I certainly, in my background in recruitment, is not an easy thing. But clearly you all have fantastic approaches to doing this. Now, let's start with Michael. Michael, do you know when you have a rock star in your recruitment process? If so, how?
Well, the easiest way to tell is if say the recruitment process includes 5 interviews, and you're the 5th person at the end of the channel, and 4 of the 5 have given the person top stars. That's the easy way to tell. This person's clearly really good at what they're doing. But on a more personal level, I'll just speak for the way I view talent, and call it slightly biased, but I always tend to look for people that have a lot of creativity. It's not so much how well they are, what they've done today, and it's not so much how well they're performing in an interview, but it's if you can try and infer what they're capable of, what their potential is. I always tend to look at potential in people, and for me, that manifests itself in what you've built. I attach creativity to capability in my own mind and from my own experience. No doubt, I've interviewed several people that are inherently very articulate and answer all the right questions, have a linguistic prowess and be able to assign their background to what you're asking them. But when 3 to 4 months working with them, they just tend to be pretty bad, for lack of a way of phrasing it. But I've also worked with people that weren't that great in interviews, but then you can just tell something. If you look at their background, they'd worked with charities, they'd raised a certain amount of funds, they've taken the initiative to build certain capabilities around the previous work. In universities, they were involved in several different initiatives that they helped construct and lead resources and people around. And those are the people that ended up adding the most value whilst being placed on the ground and being placed in those organizations. So to summarize my point here is I always tend to look at, signals of capability. Have they created something? Have they demonstrated initiatives in the past? And I tend to assess that on the basis of competency questions. When have you done this? When have you done that? Tell me a bit about your background. Look at what they've done. I think the psychometric assessment is going to go so far, but looking at what they have done to kind of to put them aside from everyone else in that resource pool really has helped me identify in previous situations a rock star.
Fantastic. Thank you. Anyone want to quickly jump in on the same question? Perfect. Nick, I would like to talk to you because you have operating a slightly different scale to our startup and scale up members of the panel. How do you find building your teams, and any kind of specific tools, techniques, or things you look for when you're building your teams full of rock stars?
Yeah, sure. So a few sort of tricks in my book. I found generally that good people, the good potential candidates, are more receptive to the hiring managers reaching out to them directly than a recruiter usually. And if the hiring manager could personalize the initial approach in the context of the problem the hiring manager is trying to solve and how the candidate's profile kind of speaks to a correlation, then that's a very good first step towards building trust. And I see more responses that way. So within my world, I empower all my hiring managers to rotate LinkedIn recruitment licenses, go do your own sourcing, your own recruitment. And then where our recruitment partners work with us is to also help build that funnel that the hiring managers can then start reaching out to. but then also validate whether this person would be a broader fit for the HUD group or not. That's the first step in the recruitment. And then for the interview process itself, so a lot of my interview habits and processes are shaped by my years at Amazon. And so what we do there, and what I'm trying to do here at the HUD group, is remove conscious and unconscious biases. So small practices like sharing the feedback with the next interviewer ahead of the interview, I would not want to do that, because you then bias the next interviewer with your interpretation of the candidate's assessment. And almost OCD, extreme paranoid cases, I've gone into interviews without even looking at the CV because I just do not want my biases to kick in. And it's a conversation with the candidate at that point. During the process itself, the interview, we do something called peel the onion. So it's a very objectivity-driven interview to remove biases coming from eloquence of a person. So we would go, right, so what good did you do? And the candidate might say, I built this good. Okay, so why was this good? How did you measure it was good? Why was it not bad? Why was it great? And so we try to get to the bottom of what good means and how the candidate or this person is sort of figuring out what good means. And it's important because in my world, empowerment is the key theme. And you decide what you will want work on, whether it's an engineer or someone else. But to be able to decide, you need to know why you would want to work on this. Why is this good? And so it ties back in the recruitment process, which is if you can objectively demonstrate why this was good, what benefit it brought you or the organization, you can then be empowered person of my team, chart out your own roadmap and careers, and be successful with us. So that's my recruitment sort of philosophy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I really like the I think you're so right. I think putting the power and the responsibility in the hands of the hiring managers to go to market, find people that they think they want to work with, just changes the dynamic, doesn't it, of the whole process, which I think is really interesting.
If you don't mind me just jump in real quick.
Yeah.
Completely agree with that. And, the concept of assessing our hiring community from a maturity perspective, so the hiring manager maturity ratio, like the reality is that the top 10% of talent will only engage with talent champions. So when our recruiters or partners reach out to people, if they don't actively see, really positive promotion at a leadership layer on social media or, wherever they congregate and engage with people, they just won't engage. So, all the way down the channel to that, bottom of the pile, passive aggressive, hiring community where it's like, where's my CVs, but not willing to do any work. Like, the data is there for people if they want top talent. I saw a podcast with the head of data science in Netflix. I can't remember the lady's name actually, apologies, but she spends 50% of her week on what she calls hiring related activities. Like, Netflix is not a brand that needs to work hard to get people who want to work there, but she still sees the importance. So really good point, Nick. I just can't echo that strongly enough, to be honest.
Thank you, David. And look, the war for talent is very real. At Amazon, I was struggling to hire. I had roles open for like 6-7 months, and we just couldn't find the right people in. I mean, it was just very, very difficult to hire. And so if you don't have the right approach and the candidates don't trust you, and if you can't pitch to the candidate why they should get excited about you, then the top talent will not be excited about you, no matter the money on the table. So that's the key take.
That's so interesting. I think hearing, I hope that for the listeners that hearing that the Netflixes and Amazons of this world struggle to hire just as much as anybody else is probably comforting. If we just switch back to the kind of other end of the scale spectrum, and Susan, you mentioned your team is competing with some of the giants, and there's only a small number of you.
Yeah.
Tell me, from your perspective, is a Rockstar team, let's imagine it's a team of 10, is a Rockstar team made up of 10 rock stars, or is there more to it than that?
I mean, I think everyone plays a pivotal role in the team for sure. And I think when you're this small, everyone has to play and carry their weight to a certain degree. I guess you can define rock stars in different ways though, right? How, some people are going to step up and be the leaders, and they're the ones who are going to make that, help organize and motivate, where other people will quietly just get their stuff done and make sure that it's high quality. So yeah, I think at this stage, if we didn't have a rock star on, for every single position, it would be difficult for us to keep up. And I think the difficulty for me is I didn't hire as quickly as I originally wanted, because finding the right talent was so difficult. It was so much more difficult than I actually thought in the pandemic, right? We hear about all this stuff about people losing their jobs and, they're needing work. And then I put out job specs and I get lots of interest, but I put offers out. I don't know. It was much, much more difficult than I thought. And ultimately I ended up hiring 6 to 8 months after I thought I would. So, we're already starting to recruit for positions that we want to hire later this year so that we can understand what's out there, what the talent pool looks like. But it's good to hear, as you said, that other bigger companies are struggling, because how can we then compete with that when we don't have the packages and the benefits and all of those things? I think the reason it works for a startup, though, is your early people come in and really believe in what you're doing. So it's like a collective win. They're in it. We give skin in the game to all of our senior leadership now. So we're all building this together. And I think obviously that will change as we grow. But, everyone's in it to win it and believes in the long-term vision.
Yeah, I think that's there's a very interesting kind of challenger, mission-driven kind of everyone's running at the same goal thing that really can infect a team and get a team really motivated. And I've certainly seen examples where, particularly in the world of sales and marketing, where a kind of small team of 4, 5, 6 can actually outperform a team of 20 or 25 just because they're working together so much more efficiently than others. Sorry, you have a team, you said, of absolutely certain that you have a Rockstar team. When you're recruiting now, do you instinctively know who's going to work well in your team? Do you have a strict process that you follow? How do you bring people into your business? And I'm mindful that you have a particularly amazing kind of mission and incredibly values-driven business. Does that play a big part in your in why people come and work for you?
Yeah, I think that is the key part in our company, that the ones who apply for us and the ones we even try to go and get to our team. So it's not always just that we interview the people who are applying for us. We sometimes go and get them. Yeah. We have had successful cases, and in those cases, it's more about we are selling our mission and impact for those people, why they would actually leave their current job to us. And so I think that the people are really mission driven and they want to work for better early childhood education or better world for the next generation. And I think that is something really highly, especially in a small team and a small startup, we are still. As I said, that we are definitely a Rockstar team. I think the biggest point there is that we don't have 5 singers or 10 singers. We have everybody, is actually what Susan said, that everybody has their own roles. And we have noticed as well, like even as 3 female founders, we are really diverse. And if I interview someone, like what Nick said, that don't get the others, the biases or the information beforehand so they can get their own idea. I have said from some people like, oh my God, I really love this person. I really think he would be good or she would be good in our team. And the next person interviews, I'm like, oh my God, like I really didn't get that, like that they might have a totally different perspective. And then of course we would maybe do the next interview, the next process with together. But one thing in our process that we have seen works really well is to actually in the end game, when we only have 3 or 2 people in the kind of finals, to actually do a work with them, something that we do a workshop with them or something in there that we actually see how that person fits into our working mindset and how do we do work. But usually it's actually better than worse that the person is totally different type or personality or something, and that's only a positive thing. Even my husband is totally opposite of my personality, so and it works.
Okay, fascinating. Thank you. Sorry for that. So we've got a question come in from Magno. So thank you, Magno, for posting that. The question is, does a Rockstar team's success rely on the ability to hire Rockstar members or the ability to create Rockstars within the team? And if it's the latter, how long does it take to get to that stage? So slightly different wording, but is it as simple as they're a Rockstar from the minute they're all on board, or does it take some time, some coaching, some training, some ways of working to get there? Susan?
I mean, so we've been fortunate enough to, we've been using the Kickstarter scheme in the UK to bring in young talent into the team. And I think that there's always something about the candidate that makes you want to hire them and bring them into your team. And, there's going to be some quality, but no, I wouldn't say from day one, people just get it and can perform exactly what you want. But I mean, that could be any of us, right? It could be me who's a bit more senior going into a new role. I think it always takes a little bit of time. As long as that person has the qualities and the ability to think outside the box and have a bit of initiative, want to learn, then I think you can also create rock stars for sure, because you can't expect someone to just, even in tech, right? They have to come in, they have to learn your code. They need to understand how the infrastructure works. So I think there always has to be that bit of patience in the beginning as well to see, is this person going to meld? And so we do everybody on a probation basis just for that. Because even though we've identified, we think they're going to fit, we think it's going to work, you don't really know, I think, as Sari said, until you start working with someone. So I think you could definitely build a rock star. And the talent that some of these young people have that that I just don't have, right? So they bring such different skill sets. But I think the thing I've learned the most is that stuff doesn't come across on CVs and it doesn't come across in interviews. Sometimes you don't even understand what gems you have until you actually give somebody an opportunity. So no, I mean, I guess I've answered that in multiple ways. Sometimes you don't even know what you have until they're in the team, because it works both ways.
Yeah. Fantastic. David, you look like you might be about to jump in on this.
Yeah, just to, I guess, extend on what Susan was saying. Like, I think it's important to remember, like, today's rock star is not tomorrow's rock star, because, the business has different needs tomorrow. So as the business evolves, people need to evolve, and we need to help them evolve to, so they can continue to be tomorrow's rock star. And I think, like, for me, the most important rock star hire you will make this year is already in your business. So that internal mobility, and I don't mean like, we need to challenge ourselves. The standard, we're great at internal mobility because 17% of our engineers move to senior engineering positions. We're not talking about that 10% stretch into a role, but like, people want to change their, people own their own career path now in a way that we never, have seen before. We're custodians and we're here to support their development. So, we need to be much more creative in terms of that career path, mapping it out and help people see that, how they want to develop and change and grow and stretch and continue to be a rock star, because, rock stars are ambitious and talented by nature. We need to help, shape a learning path for them and go in whatever direction they want to go, as long as they'll continue to add value to the business. So, I think with great rock stars comes great responsibility.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for that, David. That was just a great statement there.
Michael, were you going to jump in on that?
Oh, no, I was just going to add to David and Susan's point, really, a bit of a story of a use case we worked on. And I completely agree with David's point about, today's rockstar, tomorrow's rockstar could be found internally. A lot of organizations are looking at internal mobility as a way to offset the costs for hiring externally, but also there's a massive kind of culture cost when you hire someone externally that you need to absorb. But internally, those people already know the way things work already. It's just a matter of aligning a bit of a learning and development budget to make sure they are skilled up on the relevant need you have today, versus someone externally that has to go through the process. It might or may not work. After 3 months, they may be off and you've absorbed all that cost. So more organizations are looking internally to find that role. And a use case that I was going to bring up as an example of a company we worked with on a large bank, American bank, they're based in Canary Wharf. You have a few options there. You probably know who the company is. They were looking for some tech talent. And they really struggled to fill in that gap, that particular skill. I think it was around data warehousing, and that's a rising area at the moment. And what they found was they struggled to find the relevant talent out there in the market. And this story isn't actually based on internal mobility, but adjacent mobility in the market. And they were looking for people. They realized they couldn't find the relevant skill set in the market. So what they did quite cleverly was they tried to find other people in the kind of in the job sphere that had a certain cognitive makeup of developers. So what they cleverly did was they started to look at musicians, because developers have a strange way of problem solving, a cognitive construct that allows them to identify lines of code and solve on that basis. And musicians, they look at manuscripts, and they're in parallel playing various different devices on the basis of what they're seeing. And they found that those musicians they eventually hired for that role within a short period of time of training actually excelled in that role far better than the developers they hired for previous similar roles. So again, not necessarily looking for what's the item on, on the shopping basket, but looking at what else there is and measuring the capability spectrum to get to that point by training.
That is so interesting. I mean, I actually never heard. You hear about kind of adjacent skill sets, transferable skill sets, but that's incredibly. Let's see. On the outside, there would appear to be quite a large gap between musicians and software engineers. So that's super cool.
You can argue they found their rock stars.
Well, literally, yeah. Literally. So look, mobility, I think, is a bit of a theme. It's a very kind of current subject. I think more and more organizations are.
No, I totally agree with you, Michael. I mean, ultimately, sometimes you just need to find someone super passionate and just get them in the door, and the right passion and the right ability to learn, and may even be better than someone who comes in who thinks they know what they're doing and then is not agile and is not willing to, be humble to something that might have changed. And, like for us, Facebook changes all the time, right? The algorithm, we have a lot of people who are coming over from Facebook groups or, LinkedIn or whatnot. And a lot of these brands are really struggling with that. So if we don't adopt to what was working to what works now, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, just to add really briefly to that, Susan, I think our philosophy, because of the business we're in here, culture fit is not enough. We need everyone we need to feel that they're a culture enhancer in a very real way, because like you said, that, I mean, that if you get that bit right, everything else can be figured out, we think.
Culture enhancer, love that. Brilliant term. So
have we lost Terry? Is it me?
I can see him.
No, that is it.
Whew, that was a nervous moment. Susan, if you can't see me, I mean, it's probably a benefit, really. But hopefully that sorts itself out. Sorry, I'd love to talk to you a bit about team culture. It's sort of implied in the subject. Again, when you've got the right culture, you kind of know.
There's another question in the chat, if maybe we want to address it.
Susan, can you hear me, Susan? I think not. Sorry, if okay, can you just share, did you organically and naturally build the right culture in your organization, or did you do anything proactive and deliberate to try and foster a kind of the right working methods and values in your business?
I think it's a bit both. Somehow it was kind of a natural how we started as a small team. We were first just 3 founders without even an office or anything before pandemic. And then we were maybe a team of 6 people. And that kind of built the base of the team culture and the dynamics, and that how we are really, really working together. We actually are a bit of a different tech startup, that we have actually teachers, for example, with previous background, not tech gurus or anything like that. But we felt like that you don't need the deep expertise always if you are actually selling for the target group, that your team is capable of actually understanding the mindset of a customer, for example. And that kind of a culture and dynamic that everybody can be involved in the discussions, in the decision making. And also, I'm a person, even though I'm the CEO, I try to be away from the situation that everybody has to ask from me the final decision. We are really actually, we have a big company here in Finland, gaming company called Supercell, and they have this working method and culture of that the teams are independent decision makers, that the team makes the decision of what is the best way of building a next game, not asking from the CEO or any team leader. So that we have tried to, and we felt that is the way it's best for our working style and culture. But still, it's not like a creative chaos. Actually, we have really, really strict Kanban way of working, Kanban style, where we actually have different epics and we have dailies, we have weeklies, we have rituals, we have all those kind of processes in there. But still, it's something that we all the time and continuously develop and make it better if we think that something doesn't work for us in this method. So we are not 100% working for a certain process, but we all the time develop and adapt that. But the culture is really, really open, and everybody can kind of make decisions, and very democratic kind of way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think there's quite a lot of kind of theory behind actually the best way of fostering innovation and positivity in the right culture is to have some relatively kind of strict frameworks or processes within which you encourage people to innovate. I think, like you say, the kind of the truly chaotic side of small and fast growth businesses can sometimes end up having a detrimental effect on the culture because people feel a little bit lost or a little bit confused by what they should be doing. So
and one more thing to add for that is that I have worked for big companies like even Samsung, where there is like hundreds of people and teams and everything. It's totally different culture than that. You need to have a certain way of doing things and decision makings and those. But in a startup where you are building something that you really don't know what is the right answer, what is the right way to go, or something you have to just iterate all the time, it doesn't make sense that I would say like we should do this or we should do this. I'm happy to hire team members who are much more smarter than me, and we try to understand the problems and do problem solvings together.
Yeah, brilliant. Nick, I'm super curious to know, in your role, right at the kind of top of the technology team, how important is culture to you? How often are you thinking about it, reflecting on it, proactively influencing it? How does that all work for you in your role?
It's a key stone which kind of sits in the middle of everything else that we do. I think culture is hugely important, and I've been following this discussion. It's very exciting and interesting. Like empowered teams are absolutely the essential thing. You could get a Rockstar in, but if you don't have the right setup, they would leave very soon as well. So and often I see a lot of focus on building the funnel to get the people in, but not enough focus on the retention mechanisms that organizations need to keep the people happy, satisfied in their jobs, and to mitigate attrition. The culture I'm building at THG is similar to what Sari just explained, which is empowered teams. This philosophy actually comes from a gentleman called David L. Markey. He's the captain of a nuclear submarine in the U.S. Army. The book is called Turn the Ship Around, so pick it up if you will. But essentially, it means you push the decision making right to the edges. So you give the information and the context of the problem, let the information and the context travel right down to the edges, and the decisions bubble up. And so this is the culture that I'm actively building at THG, and it's been a great journey. The team setup, I like to think of teams as owners of their spaces. So I'm not particularly keen on. I mean, there are problems where this setup work, but a discipline-oriented team like a UX or product is not something that scales very well, in my opinion. I like to think of teams as, in technology, you have bounded contexts, which is a vertical end-to-end slice. And so you would have a team in my world which owns, let's say, the checkout funnel. And the job of that team is now to drive checkout conversions, right? And they can now do whatever they want to do as long as their mission and vision to drive checkout conversion is fulfilled. If they want to go build a native app, do it. If they want to position UI elements differently, do it. If they want to remove latencies from network calls because a lot of traffic drops there and we don't get checkout conversion, go do it. So you set up the bounded context, empower teams, let them put up their mission and vision, put the culture where they can take their own decisions, let them have the context, let them have the information, let the decisions bubble up, and that keeps them happy, and you drive the business. So that's how I set up the culture and the teams at THG.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Thank you, Michael. I'd love to hear a little bit about the culture in your organization. Is it something, again, in the world of startups, it's not always something where you've got enough time to think about, the values and the whatever that you write on the wall of the office and all of that kind of stuff. But how important is it to you at these earlier stages?
Yeah, it's very much so. As you can imagine, as I think Susan has alluded to, is once you're in a startup phase and it's infinitely critical for you to focus on productivity. You're competing against some pretty substantial giants out there.
Yeah.
And there's a temptation to just, all-nighters, crack on, build, work. But I think what's really hold true for me, for my values and what I've shared with the team, and indeed what it's similar between people I work with is the concept of just having the free, almost a medium from which you can freely express your level of creativity. And you hear that two things when you hear a lot from me are creativity and potential.
Right.
And I think what we try to do to harness and embody that in our work is we do have, to Sari's point, we do have some strict parts, some strict lattices on which we work on. And that's just so we can maintain a high level of productivity in what we're doing, delivering versus KPIs, OKRs and all that. But at the same time, we do have a lot of leeway. We try to embody the kind of Google 20%, 80-20% rule, where 20% of the time we allow to freely dream and keep the excitement and energy about adjacent things we can create. And we have these kind of monthly ideathons where we don't build, pens down, tools down, we just create. And it's all about finding problems, unique problems that are related to the business we're doing right now or externally. And we ideate from what that problem is, potential solutions, narrow it down to a target hypothesis. Then we test that through a range of different realms. And it's just a free-flowing ideathon and casting of ideas and fixing things. And that allows us to really recoup back after that exercise with renewed energy in what we're doing, and allows us to really, really channel some of that energy into what we're doing, some of that creativity into work we're doing for a better outcome. Now, in large organizations, something that I've seen that's almost contrary to a lot of what I've spoken about just now is this concept of the fluid organization. It's a liquid organization. It's a new concept where you have a nucleus of people that are focused on a specific realm of work. So typically high executives, CEO, COO, and also people around the core part of the business, HR, accounting. But then all the other people that sit around that are almost flexible in what they do, which means that you can free flow into parts of the business where there's need and where for you there's interest and passion. So a developer might in 2 weeks go work in marketing, and someone in marketing might go working in development, and various different parts of the business where there is interest and zest within that time period, which allows you to learn, adapt as an individual and grow, but also apply a new way of thinking in that part of the business, because it's really important to apply cognitive diversity in what you're doing, different way of problem solving, which ultimately leads to higher progression and in most cases excellence. Research suggests excellence in that part of work. So that idea of just people flowing around the business where there is need and where there's interest is a growing philosophy of work, and we're seeing a lot of success from that round.
Really, really interesting. The fluid organization, love the idea, love the concept. I suppose, this has been touched on, Susan, by you a little earlier. And one of the things we're fascinated by here at Hays as a kind of big societal problem we're looking at is, there's the most active and booming jobs market in years and years right now, more demand from employers than we've ever seen. And yet, if you read the newspapers and skip past and focus on the stuff around displaced communities and lost generations that have come up from this pandemic, and stats like since 2015, the number of young people studying IT related subjects at GCSE level has dropped by almost half. There does appear to be a fairly significant kind of gap between what organizations are trying to do and what's actually possible from a kind of talent and skills point of view. It's widely documented. We have a fairly significant skills gap in this country and actually globally. How has things changed over the last few years, David, since in your view, in the kind of jobs market, bringing people in? Is there any big observations you've made of how this pandemic and the changing kind of global society we live in has impacted that?
Well, it's changed everything, right? People have had time to reflect on what's important to them. So, the number one thing that there's a couple of things. Flexibility, massively important to, particularly the, Gen Z and beyond. And I don't mean like work from home, but I mean like, how am I managed, moving away from traditional performance management processes to real-time kind of conversations. That's hugely important. Also, you can pay lip service to DEI, for example. And with the research that we've done, we did a kind of a state of the nation 2 years on from remote working report. That's up on the website if anyone looks at it. But diversity, inclusion, equity, 72% of the 2,000 people we polled, which had a sizable demographic in the younger generations, said it's very important. That goes up to 90s and above for Gen Z and Black African Caribbean workers. So this stuff is not trivial. It's important ethically, but in terms of if you don't have a demonstrable commitment, and if it's not front and center and something that you live by and strive to be better at, people just won't even consider you. So I think we businesses and organizations and people as leaders need to to catch up with the world. And society has changed. Hopefully for the better. Hopefully the net kind of consequence of all this will be more inclusive, more diverse, more tolerant, more flexible societies. But if your business and the way you're set up, to Nick's point, not only to get people in the door, but to actually hang on to them. If you're not changing who you are and your philosophies as a business to match how society is shaping up to be for the future, then you've no chance at all.
Can I interject with something? So I agree with what David said. Let's look at the session, right? It's called Building a Rockstar Team. In any given team, if I flip the word rockstar slightly differently, and you are all growing your organizations, you are sort of building young teams, I think you'll probably find this maybe relevant in a few years from now. A good team is comprised of what you have rock stars and what you have superstars. And trust me, I'm going somewhere with this, right? It's not a ramble. Rock stars are people who like what they do, who are exceptionally good at what they do, and that's what they want to do, right? Superstars are people who like what they do, but they have potential. They want to do more. They are an engineer who wants to now want to understanding how product works and why that person is building whatever they are building. A rock star is an engineer. Could be an engineer who says, look, I just don't care about your business metrics. I like building code. I'm good at it. So let me build code. And people in your teams would go through various stages of being rock stars and superstars. And to be able to hold on to them, you need to work with the people, figure out what stage they are in, and set up their career accordingly. We talked about diversity and inclusion. I've been part of conversations and groups, I would not name them, where there was a massive pressure on, we're not promoting women fast enough. Yes, but the women that we have are in a different stage in their life where they're rock stars, and they are going through a stage in their life. They've just had a life event. They want to be rock stars at this stage. They don't want to be superstars. So if I now do a lip service and for optics, try to push this person out into a superstar role, give her more than she's ready to do now at this stage in her life, she would not like it and she would leave. And so at this stage in her career, to be true to diversity and inclusion, I need to respect that this person has just had a life event. They need to focus their time more towards their family, less towards their work, which means they need to do what they are good at and just keep doing that. Then I need to make that happen for them. And that's where diversity and inclusion comes in, which is, yes, I have diverse teams, but I'm also including them because I am respecting their life choices. I'm respecting their life stages, and I'm making sure that their work is centered around their life stages, not the other way around. And maybe in 2 years from now, this person will say, look, I'm ready to be a superstar. Give me more. At that point, we can go and say, awesome, you're ready to be a superstar. Let's give you more. And that's,
oh my God, we're going to need an hour to talk about this, to be honest, right?
That's the next session, right? Is how to identify superstars from rock stars. Sorry, you were going to jump in. Please do. And also, this is probably David and Nick. Thanks. I'll sort of treat those as your final thoughts. Sorry, would love to hear your response and or any concluding advice or anything you wanted to share.
Yeah, my point and comment for Nick is exactly like, let's just remember not to have expectations on behalf of others. For example, me as a mother of 2 young children, I started my new company when the older one was 1.5 and the younger one 6 months. And I hated to be in the at home or something. I really wanted to do some huge changes and big things and changes. So it might be also like, but I still know that some mothers who have had a life event, or female, male, whoever, might want different things, but then just exactly like, how do you say, ask from them first, like what they actually want to do, and not to build any expectations that, okay, they just had a baby, they might not want to do anything big.
Right.
Now it might be the opposite.
I said once women, and then I consciously said person and life events. Yeah, man, I've had this position where a man who works for me, who was on a super promotion path, last year lost his father. And so he at that point said, look, I need to take a step back.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. They went through a life event. He lost his father due to COVID.
Yeah.
And so I had to then change his career trajectory and say, okay, let's take a step back. You are a rock star, stay a rock star. The point is, sorry, you exactly said what I was trying to say, which is don't make presumptions. Go talk to your team, spend time with them, figure out what works for them, figure out what they want, and then go make that happen. You do that, you are inclusive. Your rock stars will stay rock stars and will stay with you. Your superstars will be identified and they will be on the right trajectory. Spend time with them. Don't presume, don't make assumptions. Exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah, and I think also as a leader in a company, I think one really, really important thing is exactly talk with your team, because it might be that even though you hired them for a marketing manager, it might be that they want to do service design after 1 year or something else, and exactly thinking about that. Talk to your team. It might be that they are in a different situation where they're like, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. I would love to learn more from this and that. And those people can then also learn from others when you are having the open culture, what Michael explained, that people are doing different things in a different stages.
Harry, can I just one thought from me? As a small startup, we hear all these amazing things of what we should be doing and how big teams work. I think for those of us that have smaller teams and smaller budgets and maybe a little bit less flexibility in allowing people to do whatever they want, I think it's okay to also have the pressure. We've talked about some amazing concepts today. That's not always practical either. So for anybody else who's got a small team and just needs the people to do what they brought them on to do, I think, it's a balance. I mean, we have to be very careful to try to emulate these big companies and what they're trying to do with freedom and things. But just a quick note, that's not always practicable, right? We have to also be kind of know that your coder has to code, because if he doesn't code, the marketer doesn't know how. So
yeah, and unbelievably, we're 2 minutes over already. So Michael, the last thing I want to do is not give you a chance to have any kind of final thoughts or advice. I hope that your final thoughts will involve being creative and hiring for potential, but I would love for you to give any final top tips or anything like that before we wrap.
Take the words right out of my mouth, Harry. That's it.
Sorry.
But just to summarize in 2 sentences, I'd say, rather than focusing on finding a rock star, for anyone in the recruitment journey, focus on cultivating rock stars. Because you can either have Michael Jackson, or you can have the Beatles, right? You can have a group of rock stars versus one rock star, and one of them is infinitely potentially more successful than the other.
Brilliant.
From a Michael Jackson.
Thank you very much indeed to the panel. Incredibly grateful to you all, to Nick, to David, to Susan, to Michael, and to Sari. And I suspect if we were in a real life event, the applause would be rapturous at this point for such a brilliant set of contributions from you all. So massive thank yous. Massive thank yous to everyone who joined us and listened. This has been recording, terrifyingly, this has been recording the whole time and will be live for rewatching from right now. So look, we all hope you have a fantastic rest of the event and look forward to seeing everyone at the next one. But thank you all, and that's goodbye from all of us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.